Hey, Nathan.
Yes.
Can you guess what the top 13 worst-selling cars of the year have been so far?
I guess the AMC Pacer doesn't qualify.
It does not, my man, but
Okay.
that is the topic of today's podcast. So we're going to be talking about a list of our friends over at Jalopnik. Actually, most of our friends in Jalopnik are no longer in Jalopnik.
I know they've moved around quite a bit.
They've gone to Autopian? Autotop?
Yeah, Utopian and Drive and some other places as well. Yeah.
Hey, Autopian is not a great name.
Yeah. It's a little hard for.
Great website, not a great name.
Well, I think we could talk to Jason about that. Jason, I do have some suggestions for you, my friend.
And David. So
Yeah,
great website, but I would rebrand.
Well, you want to call it let's call it Jason Tracy. Jason Tracy Cars.
I think the dude who
Tracing
funded that
cars.
would not be happy about that.
No, I guess not.
All right.
Okay.
Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about another podcast.
Yeah, I don't know
and
either.
website,
but they're
anyway,
friends of ours.
Anyway, Jalopnik did this list, 13 worst-selling cars. So thank you for putting that together. And so we're going to discuss the 13 worst-selling cars. And I can give you a hint before we start. At number 13, it was only 825 cars sold so far this year. And at number 1, only 65. And you can probably guess what that is. Sorry.
Yeah, if you couldn't figure it out with what's behind me. But for those of you who are listening, yes, stay tuned for a surprise.
But first, we've got to talk about some other things. And I'm going to do what this email that we recently got from Will says he hates what we do.
Okay,
All
go ahead, Will.
All right. Here's what he's saying, okay? When you have an episode that's mainly just discussion, please have them stay on topic rather than rambling on about unrelated items like this email. One could argue.
Okay.
In the case of the recent video of cars being discontinued, it wasn't clear when they were talking about items on the list or something else. I also suggest that with something like you put the current item on the screen. I'm reading verbatim.
Okay.
So maybe he wants us to put more stuff on the screen.
Probably when we talk about a particular car to switch the screen over to that particular car, which that's not a bad suggestion,
Yeah.
and I think we could try to do something like that in the future.
And then he adds, with the video announcing the police car, which we talked about last week, Nathan was talking about the fuel economy for his truck. So I think he's saying the headline of the video was we bought a police car, and then we ended up talking about the fuel economy of your truck because you had it was a rant about the
roof racks.
And
And actually, what I was referring to is roof racks are bad altogether. And I wanted to include sirens on police cars, which are evil, because they probably affect fuel mileage as well. But here's the thing about that. One of the things we'll do is we have a main topic, and then we talk about other topics, and usually Roman will have a major rant, and then I'll have a minor rant because he's old and cranky. And
I already got my rant out of the way.
You did, didn't you?
Yeah, we just did a video reviewing the new Toyota BZ4X, and that was a grumpy review.
That was a whole rant right there.
And I would say to you, Will, this is our podcast, and you can watch it on YouTube, and you can see our lovely faces. Or not, you can listen to it, on any of the popular podcast platforms.
Sure.
And so I feel like what you're asking us to do is to take a podcast and convert it into a video.
This is not Will's podcast as much as we love you.
Yes. And it's not really, this is the place where me and Nathan, are happily not on camera, even though we are on camera.
We're not scripted.
Right, we're just talking, and most people, or a lot of people who watch or listen to this, do it as a podcast, which is a very intimate form of. It's like the difference between radio and TV, right? What we're doing now is radio. We just happen to also have this video camera in front of us.
Yeah. There's no real performative thing with editing.
So I would kindly suggest that we put out anywhere from 15 to 18 videos that are very much on topic, like the BZ4X review that'll be on alltfl.com very soon. And then, if you want to actually watch us drive cars or go off-roading or go drag racing, there are plenty of other videos where we do that.
We have 8 channels, and they many of them cover those things directly. The thing is that this is a discussion, and because of that, Roma and I can actually talk about things and debate about things, and we both have our rants and whatnot. So when you were upset about the fact that I was talking about a roof rack and how it affects mileage, which, by the way, is universal, not just about my vehicle, tough. Sorry. Yeah, deal with it, bro.
And then the other criticism you had, which I also respect, is that, we're going to be talking about 13 vehicles, and maybe each of those should be on the screen behind us.
Yeah. And I think we can address that in the future. I would like to. Andre tries to do it when we do podcasts with him, but my technical savvy with this is to turn the computer on and leave it alone and not touch it ever, which is what the guys tell me who work here. So maybe in the future we can click through a few photos, at least on the screen behind us. But we're working our way up slowly. Right now, we're just getting a handle on sound, making things sound good. And then later on, perhaps we can work our way up to making the video a little bit more pleasing. So stay tuned for that.
Yeah, and we will ask Cole, who edits this, maybe he can overlay using B-roll the images of the cars. Mm-hmm. But I probably could scroll through those and put the video and pictures up. But let me explain to you our day so far. So you understand why this is harder than it might sound.
Yeah.
So, Nathan, what time did you get home last night?
Around 2 a.m., but I didn't get to bed until about 3 because I had to shower and get and carve the sweat off certain components of my anatomy.
And where were you at? Were you on vacation?
I was in Albany, New York.
Yes.
And then that got major delay because Chicago's had tornadoes, and that was my connection. So they actually closed the airport. So we got major delayed getting home.
And you were on vacation in Albany?
No, God, no. Vacation, me? No. No, I was driving the new Volkswagen Atlas, which is highly revised. And that video, there's one that's already out, which is a walk around on both the Atlas and the Atlas Cross Sport. And then in the very near future, like this weekend, we'll have the actual drive-in impression video coming out as well.
So Nathan flew home about 3 in the morning, got in here at 9 a.m., and he walked in the door, and the first thing I said to him was, Nathan, we have to go do a video.
Yeah, get in the Jeep.
Get in the Jeep, and we're doing a video where we're putting a different exhaust on our JK.
Right.
And so, we did that, drove to the muffler, Dan, the muffler man, great guy.
Which is a bit of a drive.
And then what did we do on the way back?
Then we drove the BZ4XYZ, whatever the hell. I hate the name.
And we did.
We did the video with that.
And then we came in here and we started this.
Yeah, we haven't even done lunch yet.
No, we haven't done lunch
in the afternoon.
So I'm not trying to obfuscate the issue, but the point I think I'm trying to make is we work so much that even putting the pictures up and getting them ready, there's nobody else here. There's no magic elf that would come in here.
Right.
And Nathan has to get this done because this has to go on the air this weekend.
That's correct.
And aligning ourselves when we're both not traveling is hard enough so we could be in the same room together.
Yeah.
So please just listen to it as a podcast. Enjoy it.
Yeah. And if it really bothers you, you can always listen to, I believe, Supercar Blonde has a podcast as well. In addition,
listen to another podcast.
Well, but in addition, also another thing is, I have a 1 hour commute,
That's true,
basically each way, and so everything has. The guys try to work around my scheduling. And we're a really small team, so we try to do as much as we can. We have 8 channels. We have 4 websites. I mean, that's a lot. So try to keep that in mind when you're throwing that out there. There is something additional, though. Was it he who mentioned in-person pod?
Yeah, no, that was me. So we've gotten a lot of requests for people saying, "Hey, we'd love to do a meetup and do an in-person podcast." And a lot of the podcasts I listen to, I'll give you a couple examples. Spike's Car Radio, they're doing an in-person thing at Monterey, which is for charity, which is very nice. Smith and Sniff. So those are 2 UK YouTubers. Mm-hmm. Johnny is from Fifth Gear, former Fifth Gear guy.
Yeah, I know who Johnny is.
He's, I think, Sniff, and the other guy is a Top Gear producer and writer, and they're doing a whole bunch of live shows.
But he's not Willman, the old.
No, he's not Willman. Okay. No. And then there's also another podcast called Seen Through Glass, where they just announced that they're doing a lot of them. But to me, the magic of a podcast is it's very intimate, right?
Yeah.
It's me and Nathan having this conversation with you guys, and I kind of feel like once you put a studio audience in place, it becomes less intimate. It becomes more about the studio audience than it does about the listener. And so as a podcast listener, I really never enjoy the live shows, but that's just me potentially.
Yeah, I see where you're going with that, but there's another side to it. Now, we're not saying we're not going to do podcasts with an audience. I think we might do some special events.
Well, we've got the 10th anniversary of TFL Truck coming up, and we would like to record a podcast.
That would be cool
with an audience.
Yeah, and Andre would really dig that. Andre loves people. He's a puppy dog. He just goes over and wags his tail and sees people. And there's other events where we have special expos and whatnot that we go to, where we could do podcasts where we are including people. We did that actually at the Overland Expo in Flagstaff, where it wasn't a live broadcast, but we were broadcasting it. We were going around, recorded it, quickly cut it, and then put it in the can and sent it to you guys. And that actually went really well because we got to show you a bunch of things. So we might do that type of stuff in the future. However, when you do a podcast like this, the way we're doing it, it's like a studio album. Imagine a rock album or something that you like listening to, which is really clean and everything else. However, there are certain people out there who really prefer a concert album. And that's kind of the idea behind having a group of people
analogy
in there. Thank you. Because when you're doing the concert thing, you're really dealing with the people who are out there, they can interact and everything else, versus just us in a room yapping together, two old men. Very different feels. So we will look at that in the future. However, Roman's point does make some sense considering the size of the team we have. And as much as I would love to do lots of meet and greets, we're so small. And we're constantly at events. Tommy's in England right now. Yeah. Andre's California.
He was in Vegas, and now he's in Detroit. So
right,
he's in Vegas with Ford and the Bronco. You were in
New York.
In New York with Volkswagen.
Yeah, and
Andre's now in Detroit.
Right, and then you're going. You're doing your thing. So the point is that the entire team, even though there's 11 of us technically speaking, really in terms of those who are on film, there's only like 4 or 5. So we have to be at all these events all over the place. And at some point in time, some of these guys have got to go home and say hi to mom or something like that.
I guess we could, knock the number of channels down.
We could do that, but that's always something to juggle with, I guess. But anyway, so that whole rant is over. See?
Let us know, in the comments of the video what you think.
Yeah, in terms of in person.
Would you be willing, or are you interested in doing a meetup? Where you would come and you'd have to buy a ticket. I think most of these are paid gigs, right?
Right. We'd probably give some money to charity or buy burgers or something.
Or something, yeah. Is that something you'd be interested in? If there's enough interest in there, we'd love to do it. It's just going to take some planning. All right. Shall we get down to the list?
Yeah, but before we do, one final thing.
Okay,
I wanted to call the first meet and greet BNAB.
Okay, what's that stand for?
Buy Nathan a brew.
Okay.
That's your entry fee. Everybody pays $0.25.
And what do you give in charity? The other end of that?
Well, yeah, they got a couple cans too. Hey, if your kids need some cans, here, take a couple cans over. They like the cold ones. Okay, maybe that's inappropriate. I heard the beeping. What is that?
Yeah, what is beeping? Hold on, you keep talking. I'll find out.
Okay, so while Roman's talking, we're going to talk about this list coming up. Now, first of all, this list, which is 13 vehicles, does comprise some vehicles that are either just starting production. Oh, no kidding. Do we get more people?
No.
Or it's vehicles that are no longer going to be in production, that are ending production. So you want to keep that first part in mind. And second part is these are vehicles that have been sold, but in some cases, these are only being reported as being built, which we'll get to in a minute.
This could be a clock. I just went back, so for some reason it went.
So that was weird.
Yeah, it was weird.
I didn't touch anything. I swear to God. See, this is the problem. If I'm around anything tech and something goes wrong, they just look at me like, "What did you touch?"
And for all of you guys who are listening to this and couldn't see it, the beeping was this little counter that we have on the counter,
which shows
which is the fast lane car and how many subscribers we have.
1 million something, blah, 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 something.
Yeah, that's kind of showing off. Maybe we should get rid of it.
Yeah, no. What we should do is have
a counter. Flex, huh?
No, I want a counter for every single one of our channels because we're creeping up on 5 million at this point.
We're
over 4 million. Yeah, I like flexing and shoving it in certain people's faces who love shoving stuff in our face. Honestly, I'm really competitive with a lot of our. We're friendly with a lot of them, but I'm competitive.
Will's really going to get mad. But speaking of competitive, our podcast is moving down the top 200, not in automotive, but in leisure. So we're starting to crack into the top 50 on a regular basis now. So obviously the people who are ahead of us are like the NPR show. You remember Click and Clack?
Yeah.
Car Talk?
Yeah, they're long dead, aren't they?
Yeah, but they're still very popular.
Well, yeah, that makes sense.
It's
a good show.
The Smoking Tire?
Yeah, makes sense.
Donut Media?
Yeah, makes sense.
They're ahead of us, and those guys do all great work. But we're working on actually doing great work as well, so that hopefully you guys are enjoying this and finding it entertaining. And hopefully we can look, if the more people that listen to this, and I hate saying, write us a review and hit the like button and smash the subscribe. And we never say that, unlike other channels. And maybe we should. I don't know. Maybe we should. But if you do like the podcast, please write us a review. And if you don't like it, write us a review.
Yeah, and here's the thing. Mostly our competitors write the negative reviews. So you want to counter them, especially if you don't like them. We know that some of them do that. So, okay. All right, let's go on.
All right.
So number 13. Number 13 is one of my favorite cars, and I've been dying to mention this because Roman doesn't like it as much as I do.
No, so we just had it, and Nathan just reviewed it. It's the LC 500 Lexus, 825 sold this year. I'm going to say two things, and we'll have a long discussion about this one. So the most beautiful car, or if not the most, one of the most beautiful cars you could buy today. Just absolutely stunning car.
The most beautiful car Lexus builds. The most beautiful car Japan has built in a very long time.
I agree. It's just scrumptious.
And it's one of the best looking cars on the road. It's just fabulous from every angle. Convertible and hardtop looks outstanding.
So you think? See, Nathan has this belief that if you drive this car, well, you tell him what it does what to the other sex.
It makes me, when I drive it,
yes.
You look at me and I'm no longer a swarthy fat guy who doesn't look very bright and isn't very bright. I'm suddenly a handsome, svelte man who's intelligent and maybe further educated than you thought.
So you're saying it's making you attracted to the other sex?
To any sex. I don't care.
Okay, to any sex. All right, let's be...
I'm fine if an elephant goes, bro, what's up?
All right, but I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna go old school with you, okay?
All right.
So I think that the Lexus brand is attractive to the opposite or same sex, but I don't think the car itself is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense.
People are attracted to the brand, but not to the car.
The LC is so pretty. It's achingly big. I bite the back of my hand when I look at that thing. When I'm walking in a parking lot, you know what I do? I actually stop. I turn around and look at it, and then I try to make sure somebody else knows I'm looking at it by holding the key fob.
So my wife walked next to it. I had it parked at home.
Yeah.
And I said, what do you think of that $105,000 Lexus, which is what it costs?
That because it has this.
And she said, she's like, 105, who would pay that for it? That was her exact words. And you would gladly pay that for it.
I would. Well, I'd sell one of my kids for it. I wouldn't necessarily pay cash. Hey, which one of you hasn't cleaned your room?
This one's for Will. I'm going to go off. Sorry, Will. You've laid down the gauntlet.
Sorry, Will. Now we're really going to go off script.
Yeah, now we're really going to go off script. So, Nathan, let me ask you this before we get back to the Lexus, and we will.
It's so sexy.
We were just filming that BZ4X, and we kept driving around to this guy who was cutting his shrubbery.
He had a dog with him, too. Really pretty
dog. And he kept looking at us, because when you film, you have to do the take over and over, so we kept driving around. Anyway, the question I have for you and the audience is like, how much money would you have to offer somebody to buy their dog before they would seriously take you up on it? We had
this discussion in the car. So initially I was thinking around $2,000, but I think that the absolute point where you would look at Fido as much as you love them and go, you know what, I'm willing to get rid of the dog, $5,000.
Yeah, I think that's, what do you guys think? Like, if somebody came up to you and said, I will give you $5,000.
This is what we sometimes talk about when we're driving around between takes and stuff like that.
For your beautiful, is that how far your love extends at that point? Would you be like, done, and I'm going to go and get myself another one?
Yeah, I'll miss you, Fido, but you're going to a better home. And thank you for the $5,000.
And I'm not talking about some like very, purebred show dog. I'm just talking about the average, either mutt or rescue that people have at home. Would $5,000 buy that dog?
Do you realize that Tommy's going to start getting emails for selling
Blaze? We're not selling Blaze.
Tommy's going to freak out. Tommy's overseas right now, so he'll come back and he'll be like, "What the hell's going on? I got all these bids on the dog."
But if we were more YouTuber and less journalist, that would be a fun. This is a free one out there for YouTubers.
There you go. There's a freebie.
Yeah, like you can go the Mr. Beast route. And just walk up to people and give them $5,000 and see if they'd give them your dog.
What you do is you go in a really questionable van and then come out with a wad of cash. Say $5,000 now for your dog. What do you say? Actually, what you do is you start off small. You go $500, and they'll be like, absolutely not. No.
I wouldn't do it for $500.
No, this is my dog. This is my life. Yeah. My love. Yes. How about 5,000? All of a sudden, the cha-ching you'll hear in the distance, and they'll be like, yeah, later, Fido. In some case, this is what we think. We might be wrong.
We could be wrong. I mean,
that's why we want to get your impressions.
I don't know if you could put a price on love, but you could certainly put a price on a dog and how much it costs to get another one.
And in my case, I'd actually give you a 2-for-1 deal. So just so you know, I got a dog with one eye who's a little mutt, and I will give that dog free with one of my other dogs. I've got 3 dogs.
All right, so
back to the LC though.
Yeah, so here's my issue with the Lexus.
And by the way, it sounds like $1 million when you crank it.
I love the car. This one had the performance pack, which meant it had the carbon fiber
and a 21-inch wheels, really big wheels.
But my problem with the car has nothing to do with it, like the way it looks, the way it sounds. It's just not enough horsepower. It needs another 100 horsepower. And I understand it's a GT, but it's like 470.
Yeah, something like that.
It needs, I asked Nathan this question. I'll ask it to you now on camera. For $50,000, you can get a Mustang that has more horsepower than the Lexus. Yeah, why wouldn't you?
I would still look like a schmuck driving it. Whereas if I'm driving the LC, I look like $1 million. It's so good looking. I drive a Mustang. It's like, oh, fat guy in a Mustang. I drive a Camaro, fat guy in a Camaro. Corvette, yeah, well, I mean, maybe a little bit better, but I'm driving the LC, which is sex on wheels and sounds great and handles really nice, by the way. If you want the sports car, then you're going to have to go to another vehicle. But this is a GT car. And for a GT car, I practically need a monocle. I look so good.
So if it's so beautiful, which we've now both established, why is it not selling? Why only
825? Because only 825 people in the United States have taste. That's why.
That's a fun answer, but it doesn't answer the question. You see,
well, we always knew it was a limited run on the car.
There is something that's not resonating, right, with a majority of the people. Now,
yes.
My friend James has one. He just ordered another one because
James is awesome.
The 2024 is going to have a different screen. He is awesome. Set up, it's going to have a different color.
Yeah.
So he's got the convertible. He's getting another one, but. He is definitely...
Motoman owned one.
But they're both the outliers. And now, the used ones are going to come down in price. You can probably get down maybe 60-ish.
I think 70 right now, but I think they will drop a little bit more.
But why is it not resonating with more people? Is it like right car, wrong brand, maybe?
No, I don't think it's any of that. I think it's very simple.
All right, let's hear it.
The same reason why there's other vehicles on this list that compete with it. And that is that sports coupes, GT cars, simply don't sell. Unless there's something like a Corvette, unless there's something like a Mustang.
Selling like hotcakes.
I know, that's my point. Those cars still give you a lot of value for crazy power and handling. This car isn't in that class. This car is for the guy or the gal who is perhaps a doctor, a lawyer, a master of industry of some sort who really wants that particular car. It's not for passengers. That's one demerit. It doesn't have all-wheel drive. That's one demerit. So you know what I mean? It's in a very, very small little tiny piece of that pie. And yes, 825 may not sound like a lot. However, for Lexus saying, this is our halo car, we can build something really, really beautiful, I don't think that's a bad number at all.
I think the issue, quite honestly, is time has moved on, and these cars, and I'll give you an example of a car that's also beautiful, that competes directly with this that isn't selling, and that's the Jaguar F-Type, right? It's almost identical in a lot of ways, right, in terms of price.
I would agree, and I love the F-Type as well.
It's also not selling. I mean, Jaguar, sold more than 825 cars this year, but not much more. And I just think that, me and you live in a James Bond generation when these cars were the pinnacle of, and I think right now they're just out of favor. People would rather have a Tesla Model S Plaid, or they would.
Some would.
Yeah, or if you're going to dig deep, then they'd rather have a Porsche, right? Or maybe a Corvette, but the Lexus doesn't have the brand establishment of building these cars.
Okay.
Except for the LFA, but the LFA was a very limited production car.
And that was a really limited, and that was a very different car. That was an actual sports car. That was a supercar. This is not that. This is something very different. Okay, let's move on. We're building.
What's number 12?
The Audi Q8 e-tron.
779 sold so far this year.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that Q8, to be honest with you. It just doesn't really.
Audi has kind of lost the magic in some ways recently, right? All of their e-trons are just kind of, I hate to say it, but I'm going to say it. They're just kind of like very stylish toasters.
Well, more important,
not the sports car, not the GT, but
the GT is their
the
best
crossovers.
Yes,
yeah, they're just kind of.
Well, you're going to see other Audis on this list,
yes.
and they just don't seem to be selling, and that is an issue. And the other aspect of Audi is that you would think that they would really be leading the charge in tech, and it just doesn't. It seems like the Volkswagen Group just doesn't care about having Audi really lead that charge. At one point, they did with the GT. But then they kind of pulled back. Oh, well, the Porsche has to have more power. The Porsche has to have more range. Or something. I don't buy it. I don't think it's right. And I think that Audi is suffering because of it.
Well, there's one word, Tesla, right? Tesla has taken the wind out of Audi sales, out of BMW sale, right? Because Tesla has now
in that premium category.
Yeah, has kind of jumped to the top of the most desirable car. And Audi no longer, and BMW, because that's next on our list, no longer, and they're both of those companies are struggling right now to reinvent themselves. They're trying to figure out what does it mean to be Audi in an electric world.
Yeah.
And they're caught between kind of a rock and a hard place, because I think we're at this moment, and I've been reading stories about this, we're in that chasm, right, where early adopters have gotten all the electric cars that they want. And now you need to go from, like, in America, it's 6% all electric right now.
Yeah.
You need to go from 6% to like 30% or 40%. And you got to give people a reason to switch. And I don't think that Audi or BMW have figured out what that reason is.
But we're still gaining, and so by next year we should be close to 10%.
But it's going to be hard.
It will be hard. And it's also hard for BMW, who is number 11 on our list. They've sold 761 BMW XMs this year.
Well, Jalopnik said people aren't buying it. I'm not sure. Part of that could be because they just gone on sale.
Yeah.
But the kind of cynical part of me, and we've had that car, right? It's a very expensive car. It's $160,000. It's the first M car that's come around in a long time. That's purely M. That doesn't share its anything with the rest of the BMWs, right? So it's a pure M car. 500 horsepower ish, hybrid. But I'm gonna be honest here. I'm always honest, but maybe too honest. I mean, how many Bulgarian gangsters are there? Right? That's to me, that car seems like it's like aimed at that demographic. I don't understand it.
I can't look at that and think old BMW craftsmanship. I can't. It looks kind of plasticky. It's just and the nose and
everything's too much. Just too much. Like they looked at Tesla and they said, you know what? Those guys have gone very minimalist. So let's go to 11.
Yeah, let's just make things hanging off in weird directions.
There's like a ceiling that lights up like the Rolls. I don't want a ceiling that lights up in my car, right? The kidney grill lights up at night, which to me just feels
the grill itself looks out of place. Everything
it just feels garish instead of classy. You know what I mean? It's like screaming like, I am a BMW and you are successful for driving me, and I feel like you're just everything that isn't classy. And I hate to say it, in that car. I'm not trying to point a finger at all the BMWs,
right?
But to me, that car just screams way too much. Just everything, just a lot. It's just a lot. That's probably the best way to put it.
Well, another minimalist car on this list is number 10, the Genesis G90.
703 sold. We're at number 10 now this year. So Genesis has the issue where they have to establish the brand, and they haven't done it yet.
They're starting to, though.
They're
winning awards left and right for their design.
Journalists love them, but I'll give you an example. So I'm walking my dog, right? And this is hilarious.
Did someone offer you money for the dog?
No, nobody offered money. And one of my neighbors says, hey, do you mind if we ask you a question? I'm like, yeah. And the woman comes out, and they're an older couple, really nice couple, right? And older couple. I'm older now too, but older than me, definitely retired.
90.
No, they weren't that old. Okay. No. Let's say in their 70s, right? And they're like, hey, we need to get a new car. And here's the funny part. I'm like, okay, what's the old car? And the answer, let's see if you can guess the old car, is one of the worst. I said to him, I said, you bought one of the worst Audis ever built. Can you guess what that car was?
Well, it wasn't a TT, the retired.
No. It had three classic problems. Number one, the air suspension always goes out.
Okay, so it's a Quattro. It's an all-road.
Yes, you got it. She had an all-road. I look in her garage with collapsed suspension. The
turbo was one of the older ones?
Yeah.
I love the older ones, too. They're so cool to look at, but they're so...
So it's 2.7 liter, right? Mm-hmm. Turbos go, suspension goes, transmission goes. I know. It is.
That car's a paperweight.
Yeah, it's like you are upside down in that car immediately. So she's like, "What should I buy to replace it?" And the neighbor had just gotten a Volvo. What was it? The 40, the hybrid.
Oh, the XC40.
Yeah, which I think is a good, but it's smaller. But she wanted something
60,
something like. She's like, "Well, I want something that's a little bit luxurious." I'm like, maybe a Lexus RX. And then I thought, how about Genesis? And she kind of looked at me with expression on her face, like, "What's that?" And I think that's the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I have a cousin who lives in Sacramento, and they do quite well. For some reason, her husband likes Lincolns, so they've been doing a lot of Lincolns, like the Aviator and stuff like that. And there's some problems with reliability, and she wanted something a little bit more.
A lot of whiskey I'm drinking. Huh?
Yeah.
It's iced tea.
Of course it is. Anyway, so I recommended at the time she was looking at a mid-size SUV. I think I mentioned the XC8, or sorry, the G80.
Yep.
The XG80. Is it the X?
Well, that's another problem.
Okay. See, that's the problem, is the nomenclature. But anyway, so I mentioned a few of those, and she was just totally like, I don't know what the hell these are. And then she had to look up reviews, and suddenly the reviews are glowing. And yes, she became interested. So they need to get out there a little bit more. So I agree, and that's one of the reasons.
Look, G90 is that giant sedan, right? It's that beautiful sedan, but there's two problems. You're competing with the BMWs and Mercedes of the world.
Yeah, the S-Class.
Yeah, and the 7 Series. And that's also a segment that's shrinking in America.
Yeah, but you get a lot for the money on the G90. It is really, really well screwed together. I prefer the Lexus personally. It's just slightly. I think it's a better bargain for a big, long car. But Mercedes-Benz, BMW, they compete. So does Audi with the Genesis G90. And Genesis was open about this. They said it was never going to be a volume car. They just want to be in the market with a big, luxurious car.
And it's beautiful. Like, I love the controls on that thing.
Most of them are great.
Everything looks like it should be in a Rolls Royce.
So yeah, well, the interior design is directly from guys who used to work at like Bentley and Rolls Royce.
Yeah, the lead designer is former Bentley guy.
Yeah,
I can't think of his name right now, but you certainly sense a lot of Bentley in that car. But maybe the problem is they're trying to fly before they've walked, or run before they've flown.
Speaking of flying before they should, actually, is number 9 on our list, which is the Audi Q8 Sportback e-tron.
So it's the same car as the other one, except it's got the sloping roof.
Yeah, and they only sold 340 of those. And I'm really I think maybe Americans are getting a little sick and tired of the whole Sportsback thing. Maybe you guys are finally realizing, a coupe design in a vehicle that should be an SUV where I have a lot more space that's usable, and I'm not gaining anything from this other than a different look. Yeah, maybe I'll stick with the SUV design of it.
Yeah, I mean, I have a couple of guilty pleasures that I want to own. I want to buy a ZDX at some point. Yes, you know that, right? And that's
it is problem. Cool looking, but
it's ZDX.
The world's worst backseat.
Yes,
it's terrible. I mean, you have to fold yourself over because of the way the roof is so sloped.
But I like these kind of weird, quirky cars, and that is certainly at the top of my list of something that I would like to own at some point. But you're right, Nathan. I never understood it. It's always been, and I guess. We've talked about this before. It's like if you're an empty nester and you want the kind of the sportiness of having a crossover or SUV that isn't, then you buy the Sportback.
It still doesn't make sense.
All right, so let's take another. This is for you, Will. Now, when this comes out, I believe the embargo. When's the embargo on the Volkswagen that you just?
It's already up by the time this comes out.
All right, so tell them what you just reviewed.
Tomorrow. Okay, so I went out and I drove the Volkswagen Atlas and the Atlas Cross Sport for 2024.
And there we are.
Yeah. So, well, the Cross Sport isn't just, it's not coupe.
Okay.
It is a slightly lower roof. The whole thing is that it's a sliced off back, so it only has room for 5 as opposed to 7.
Right.
The one thing about the Atlas, probably its strongest suit is
this is the new one, the
new Atlas, but even the old one, plenty of room in the third row. An adult like me can fit behind myself in the third row. And that's kind of rare for the class. When you suddenly get rid of that and make a vehicle less capable and less utilitarian, it makes no sense to me. So there's nothing wrong with the Atlas Sport or the Atlas Cross Sport. It just doesn't make a lot of sense to pay $1,000 more, have the other one that has more room.
Let me ask you this. Is this a German thing? Are there any American cars where there's like,
yes.
What American car?
Recently, the Buick Avenir version, not Avenir, sorry, take it back. Rewind. The Buick Vista, whatever, what the hell did I drive? Invista, that was it. The Buick Invista, which is essentially a Chevy Trax So it's front-wheel drive, little 3-cylinder turbo, but they're more luxurious version. I went and drove that about a week ago, and that one has that sloping roof design as well, as opposed to more like wagon-like design, like the Trax, which it's based on. And it looks good. I think it looks pretty good. They did a great job in terms of visuals. However, you lose utility. You're losing several cubic feet of cargo space, and your rear passenger, they have to duck a little bit. It just makes no sense.
All right, there you have it. It's still a German thing, in my opinion, because Volkswagen, BMW, Audi, and Mercedes all do it. But I think you'd be hard pressed to find Japanese or American cars that actually have this, like where you've got the crossover and then you've got the Sportback version of it. I don't get them.
Speaking of Japanese and American, let's move on to Italian.
Yes, number 8 on our list is the Fiat 500X. 277 sold so far this year. Now that's a car that's going away.
Yeah, we're pretty sure it's gone as of next year, but there's no official announcement. Now, they did say that they are bringing Fiat 500e or electric here.
Yeah, I went and actually did a video on
it. But the thing is, you didn't know for sure what it really looks like because that was the European version. It could look different.
Actually, they had 3 special editions.
Yeah, they did. Their artistic creations and whatnot.
Yeah, the issue, I think, with... like, bring it on, dude. My problem with the 500e is the range. I think the highest range is only 150 miles. And
for now,
in America, those city cars just don't. I shouldn't say they don't work. So we've had plenty of examples of like European city cars that have been brought here, and the current 500e, right, the one that was the California compliance car, of course, the smart car. Mm-hmm. They just don't sell because once you get out of the city, if you want to go someplace, America is just so freaking big with a lot of nothing in between. And when I mean nothing, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but there's a lot of farmland, there's a lot of desert, there's a lot of mountains.
Right. It takes you time and distance to get to another location.
And with 150 miles of range, that's got to be your second or third car. And then all of a sudden your potential market is really shrunk down. So I always worry about these and I wish I had them. I love them. I love little tiny cars. But
yeah, I do too. But the Fiat 500X, they say there will be an electric equivalent of that coming in the future, which will have greater range.
And there's pictures of it out there.
Yeah,
it looks good.
And it does look good. And I think that Fiat is at a very crucial stage. If they want to stay in the United States,
they're hanging on by
a thread. They need to come in with that, not just one, but 3 or 4 different electric vehicles that are super affordable to get their name back out there into the consciousness of U.S. purchasers. So, if they don't do that, I don't think they're going to survive.
So there is some interesting news out there, and we were just talking about this. Right now, Stellantis is sort of kind of owned by Peugeot and
partnered.
Yeah. And there is a French company that might be bringing a car to America.
Alpine.
Exactly. Tell them about that.
Yeah, well, I've got very little on it, but they're talking about bringing vehicles here to the United States with a partnership through Peugeot and Renault, I think. Is it Renault? Yeah, you know what? Actually, I got to double check on that. I don't want to make any announcements because there's 2 different companies, Alpina and Alpine. But nonetheless, there are less expensive versions of European electric vehicles that are built by Peugeot that might be making their way over here under different names. That we know is happening.
So I would say that Stellantis has a couple of brands that have barely enough cars to be called a brand, right?
Yeah,
with Fiat being
Fiat
one
and
of them, Dodge being another one, and to some extent Alfa Romeo.
Which is on this list.
And Maserati as well, right?
Not on this list, surprisingly. So if the Fiat 500X, by the way, not a horrible car. It's a very simple, kind of basic, all-wheel drive, little mini crossover.
The problem with that car is the Renegade.
Yes, that's exactly it. They're based on the same platform. The Renegade's better. It's just better. So that's one of the problems with the 500X.
You know what I just learned? This is also another head scratcher. Like, I've always believed that to be successful in business, you give the customers what they want. And sorry, Will, I know I'm not doing that, but for the most part, we try to give you choice and what you want. Did you know that Fiat has announced that they're doing away with the all-wheel drive Panda? It's only going to be 2-wheel drive?
Yeah, I did hear that somewhere.
The Panda to me has always been about all-wheel drive.
A
For
version
all
of it,
Europeans, you know that, right? It's always been like the little cute Italian country car that everybody's bought because it had all-wheel drive, so it in inclement weather it did well. Why would you get rid of what makes the car the car?
Well, they wouldn't be the only one who've done that, have they? Yeah. There's other companies that have done
maybe
similar things.
Maybe I'm wrong,
Now, let's move on to another vehicle that is on this list, and I'm actually a little surprised by the number. I actually thought it would be lower.
Yeah, Nissan GTR 217. They increased the price, Nathan, and they've done what to it?
Not a lot.
Not a lot, no. It just soldiers on, and it's really starting to get long in the tooth, right? When that
with the new 400Z technically,
right? The new Z, it's just Z, yeah.
Yeah, it really makes a case that the GTR is even less important to the buyer unless they have a new one coming out that's got a new body, new transmission, something that brings it out into the forefront of Nissan, because it used to be the halo car, and really Americans don't even think about that car anymore. Look, 217 sold. That's
I remember when it came out, there was so much excitement, right? The Fast and the Furious movies.
We drove a couple of them.
People still lust for the Skyline, right? The Japanese version of it, the JDM version. We drove them. It was breathtakingly quick.
Handled them remarkably well.
Yeah, and it was a supercar. It was like the NSX. It was a supercar at an affordable price. I mean, when it came out, they were like $70,000 for a 600 horsepower, 0 to 60, whatever it was, 3-second car.
Yeah, and on top of that, they're actually practical. They had a decent sized trunk, a real back seat,
handmade engine,
a remarkable car. And so the fact that they're still around, essentially unchanged for so many years, that to me is a bit of a crime, because I think Nissan really needs to focus on that, because they need a new halo car. That's their actual halo car. Whether you guys agree or not, that's what I believe.
And number 6 is also in that same vein.
Exactly. Well, number 6 we know is going away.
Yeah, it's the Audi R8. So far, 186 sold this year. Beautiful car when it came out. Once again, all-wheel drive, supercar.
One you could drive every day practically, too.
And maybe the problem, and I'm guessing at this, Nathan, is you could buy a Tesla Model 3 Performance that'll run circles at least in a straight, not straight line.
I would rather have the R8 all day long with a manual transmission.
Yes, but you say that. Yes. But the R8 is going to cost you 3 times as much, and it's going to be slower. So a guy in a
it's not going to cost
Model
3 times as much.
An R8? Yeah, 150 grand. You bet it is. A Model 3 Performance, $50,000, 3 times as much for a new R8.
I would say it would compare more against the Model S Performance. Because you're going big and bold, you're going to go
Plaid
big.
Plaid. I forget. Mr. Musk keeps raising and lowering the price.
Yeah. I know.
So last quarter, you could get a Plaid for 105, and 0 to 60 in 2 seconds. And now the Performance, I think, is don't quote me on this. It's like a $20,000 upgrade where it gives you, carbon fiber or carbon ceramic, brakes. More track focus, stability, better suspension, bigger tires.
I'd rather have the R8 all day long. If I were getting a car that I want to take on the track and have fun.
Yeah, I see me. I can't do that, dude, because the problem is I just had this happen, okay?
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. So
Please.
I was in our Model 3 Performance.
Yeah.
And a guy in a Cayman pulls up next to me, right? And he looks at me, I look at him, and by the time he even put it in first gear, I was 200 feet ahead of him.
Sure.
Seriously. I mean, I was like, boom, I'm gone.
Yeah, and a drag race, that's great. But if you're going on the back roads in a canyon, which is what I'd really like to do, or you're on some sort of circuit that's very similar to a Grand Prix circuit, the Tesla is going to have some issues after doing a couple laps. I can take that Audi and all day long I can put gas in that thing and keep it going.
But the Plaid Performance will do the same thing.
The Plaid Performance will detune itself when it overheats.
I've been, the reviews.
I'm telling you.
We don't have firsthand experience, so I'm only going for, by what other people have said and written. But the Performance, actually solves a lot of those problems. And more importantly, Nathan, that's why America has always been about straight line performance, because it's real, right? Yeah, sure. In some mythical world where there's no speed limit in the canyon, and 2 cars come up next to each other, the Porsche will always be quicker around a curve and around a track. But I don't live in that world.
What are you talking about? You have it right down the street.
But I don't do that. I don't go out. It's
I do.
Look, the problem is so track is very expensive where it's safe. And if you go in the mountains and you start doing that, there are a lot of people on bicycles.
Oh, for crying out loud. Look, if you're in the mountains and you're driving around.
I'm one of those people on the bicycle.
No. If I'm going down a mountain road, I might take a little bit of speed and enjoy myself around a corner or two. Don't say you don't, because you do.
I did that once coming down the canyon when I was a younger man and had more more lead in the pencil. And I was in my 300ZX, and it's a Porsche 944 Turbo, and that 300ZX had Super Hikes.
Forward
steering, we raced down the canyon, and it was at night, and all of a sudden the Porsche was behind me, and I see the lights go left, right, and then they disappear, and the guy completely spun it. And I stopped and I walked up to him, and he could have gone off, off the thing. And he was like,
"Your safety concerns have nothing to do with my reality."
And I just saw the look in his eyes.
Yeah, sure. He was probably scared. You know what, though? My point is that if you're going to buy a performance car, you're going to enjoy a performance car. Certain people, me. And you may not. That's fine. However, honestly speaking, I have a lot more fun throwing a car like an R8 around a corner where I'm shifting into gear, if you can even find the older ones with the manual, and having fun with it. So that's where I'm going with the R8. Very different than the Lexus, by the way, in terms of my mentality towards it.
So I've recently discovered the fun of a Miata. Because that car...
That's another car that you could throw around those corners and
I do.
Perfect control.
That car, you could be doing 30 and it feels like you're doing 50.
That's my point. And it's not on this list, thank God.
No, but so that... Don't get me wrong. I don't mean to sound like I don't love driving a car quickly around a corner. I really do love it. But I also think to myself, like that guy in that Cayman, right? Mm-hmm. You think he went home and he said, "Hey, honey, I just lined up against a Tesla, and guess what?"
Well, if he's discussing that with his wife or she's discussing that with her husband, then they're losers.
Right, but I'm just thinking, if I'm that guy in the Porsche, then I got to be making all kinds of excuses about the fact that my car, which is more expensive, is actually slower.
Yeah, I agree. But I think we're in the reality now where most people get it, that in a straight line, electric cars absolutely are king. Hey, speaking of electrification, let's move on to number 5, which is something interesting. But you guys got to understand how this list works. It's the Toyota Grand Highlander. 159 have been sold this year currently. However, it just went on sale.
Yeah, so
that's why the numbers are so low.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one is probably an outlier, and I think.
But isn't it a hybrid?
Yes, you can get it as a hybrid or not. You can get it in both, and I think it'll sell like hotcakes. Now, number 4, I'm not sure will sell like hotcakes.
Number 4, we're dealing with in some very interesting ways, but I can't go into details about that. What I can tell you is this. Number 4 is an Italian vehicle that can come as as a turbo or a plug-in hybrid.
Oh, no, only comes as a plug-in hybrid now in America.
In the United States, yes, it does.
So it's the Alfa Romeo Tonale, 118. It just went on sale, another one. But yeah, you're right. So, I like to go for a run in the morning. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about this car in the morning. Here's a question for you and the audience.
Yeah.
So the Italians like to name their cars after Italian things. So Tonale is...
for a toenail.
No, it's a mountain pass.
Yeah, it's got switchbacks, and it's actually super. It was featured on certain car shows.
Like the other one, I can't think of the other one now. There's another one.
Espresso Pass.
No, another Alfa Romeo that's named after a pass. It's not the Giulia. What other Alfa Romeos are there? The Giulia. What's the other one?
The Stradale.
Anyway, and there's also that Maserati Grecaro.
Johnny Greco.
You know what I'm talking about? The Maserati. Yeah. It's the SUV.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's a couple of Maserati SUVs that they now call, don't they have one that's called the Bora now or something like that?
No. You drove this Maserati.
I know.
With Tommy in the rain.
Oh, God. Hey, what was that one? Yeah, that was the...
Levante.
Okay.
Anyway,
Levante.
What I was thinking about is, I'm giving Toyota a lot of grief for naming a car BZ4X.
It's a terrible name.
It's a terrible name, and we love traditional names, but I'm wondering if Alfa Romeo would be smarter to not try to establish Tonale, which is, I'm sure in Italian it sounds much better than in English. But it could be one of those problems where, like the Giulia works for me, right? That's that's a name I just associate it immediately. But Tonale,
make up an Italian name that's totally fake. Strada Pereglia. It doesn't matter, but make it sound better for the American limited tongue because we're limited people and we need that. Remember when Suzuki did the Kazashi? People had no idea what to mention. They thought it was a cereal. So my point is that, and I agree with Roman, the naming isn't right on this car.
It's a good car, and I worry that it's hamstrung by a name that just is not going to resonate.
There's another problem with it.
What?
It's also a Dodge.
The Hornet.
People are aware that this essentially is the Dodge Hornet.
Yeah, we're back in a day that we got away from for a while. Now we're back. So the Hornet and the Tonale, classic,
brand sharing. I mean, the platforms are the same pretty much.
Yeah, and also BZ4X and Solterra.
And that Lexus.
Yeah, and the Lexus, right? And I just don't. I don't think it does. And now, of course, what's the Toyota Supra and BMW?
Like kind of the Z4-ish
Yeah,
mixed with the two or whatever.
yeah. This chassis sharing and brand, I'm going to call it mix-up. I think it really hurts the manufacturer because it's like going to McDonald's and buying a Whopper. It just seems wrong to me.
Yeah, I would say this is well. We know from the inside that when Dodge came along and said, "Oh yeah, that's a nice platform. We're going to take that and put it in the Hornet," that the Alfa Romeo team was furious because they wanted that bespoke for them as an Italian thing, and now it's been kind of whitewashed. And the media hasn't been very nice to the Hornet, and in some cases that's rightfully so.
So I think Toyota will tell you that without BMW's help, there would be no Supra.
Yes,
but this is
but it's not Toyota.
It's one of the largest car
whatever
companies.
they want.
Yeah,
right.
but look, if you don't need to be doing this kind of chassis sharing, brand confusion to put out a Supra. You've got the resources, and I think people will respect it. These are not like collaborations that people want. These are collaborations that people scratch their heads about and go, I want a Toyota or I want a BMW. I don't want a hybrid of both of those. And maybe in the boardroom and maybe with the bean counters, it sounds and smells and tastes good, but in the public, it just feels wrong. That, to me, at least.
Okay, to some people, I would say that's probably the case. Let's move on to the next one because this one's really confusing. A lot of you don't even know this exists, and that's the Hyundai Nexo.
Nexo.
Yeah,
105 sold. So the problem with the Nexo, of course, is it's run on hydrogen.
Yeah. It's a vehicle that really can only be sold in 2 states.
Kind of, sort of.
And kind of, sort of. And even then, limited access to hydrogen stations. It's more of a test vehicle, or perhaps it's for a pissing contest where you want to bring it over. All your friends have Teslas. You're like, well, you have your Tesla. I have my hydrogen car. Look at me, call me Zeppelin. Whatever you want to. But the thing is that 105 of these things have been sold. That's 105 people who have access.
There's like 45 hydrogen stations in California, and they're going down, not up.
Hydrogen, I think, is a way of solving certain power issues, but in terms of putting it in a car, the infrastructure is going to be even harder than electric infrastructure.
Is Toyota still selling the Mirai? Because that's not on this list. But
it's not on the list. I don't think they're building it anymore. I think we did a list of things that are going away, and I think it was on there.
Yeah, because once again, another car that isn't feasible without a hydrogen infrastructure. And I wish there was a hydrogen infrastructure, but legacy car companies don't seem to understand that new electrified cars or hydrogen cars are 50% about the car and 50% about the charging, or in this case, hydrogen network. And if it doesn't exist, it don't exist.
That is correct. And the next vehicle on this list is sort of stunning to me, but I think I get it now. And that is the Mazda MX-30.
Yeah, so that's a compliance car that came along after compliance cars were no longer a thing.
I just didn't understand this thing at all because
it was supposed to have a range extender.
Yes, and it didn't, and that was the problem. And I was wondering why bring it out. Yeah, they were going to have so essentially this is like a small micro SUV that it's all electric. And it was supposed to have a range extender.
Well, in Europe it does, I think. We never got it.
We never got that version. And so the one here has really limited miles. It looks, if that. It looks cool, and it's a Mazda, so they put in some decent handling.
Clamshell doors.
Yeah, it's kind of like an i3-ish type thing. But the whole bottom line here, they sold 66. And that's just not enough to register on the scales, to be honest with you.
I wanted to buy one because I love, like I said, quirky cars, and I thought it'd be a fun video series. And I was looking around in California at the dealers, and you got to give the dealers, credit. They have chutzpah, Nathan, because they were still asking like full sticker for the car. And
isn't that crazy? I mean, it's just like, what are you guys nuts? You're not going to sell them.
This car's going to go like a Mirai, used Mirai, is $7,000 in California all day long, right? This car's going to be at that price point. If it isn't, it should be there. But it does take a lot of chutzpah to sell a car that has range from oh God, 1980, right? When they were doing those
the mid to late 80s when they were doing the
let's
Chevy.
be real. Like 2015.
Yes.
And pretend like it's a $35,000 car.
Yeah.
It isn't.
No. Obviously, most of the public knows that, except for 66 people who probably are either employees and or fans of Mazda, which is why they bought it. Now,
and live in California because they only sell it in California.
So the next vehicle they sell, actually, you can get it in other places, including in Colorado, because we bought one. And that is the vehicle that's directly behind me, and it is number one on this list.
Yeah, the Hummer EV. We had.
We know it's a truck-ish.
65 sold now. There's a bit of nuance here that we have to talk about, and that is General Motors doesn't distinguish between units built, like some companies, and units sold. So there may be a 500 GM Hummer EVs built, but because they're missing parts, or because they're missing batteries or whatever, they haven't been sold. So I don't think this is, in the Jalopnik story, they said that people didn't want this vehicle. I think people want this vehicle.
I agree.
I know that because they're selling well over sticker. I just think GM isn't building them because of whatever reason. GM, maybe it takes it. Look, it's got a 200 plus kilowatt hour battery pack, and I'm thinking maybe at GM people are saying to themselves, we could build a lot of other vehicles. Like you could build like 5 bolts using the battery pack, or 3 bolts.
Yeah, it's still a different pack. But the point is that
no, they're both Altium, the new ones.
In the Bolt?
No, the Bolt doesn't have the new one.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, so what's
Bolt doesn't have it.
What's
has the old
what's the new?
Altium.
Equinox. That's the new.
Yes,
EV.
that
that's
has
going to have. Yeah,
that's what I'm. Yeah. But not the Bolt though.
Right.
So the deal is with the Hummer. I believe I've heard the chip shortage really hurt the Hummer, and it's a very expensive, very technical vehicle to build, which makes sense. So that is one of probably many reasons why these things are not flying out the door. Yes, they are being built, but only 65 have been built. So that's like nothing.
All right, in the last few minutes that we have, Nathan, I'm going to run a conspiracy theory by you that I think actually has merit.
Okay.
And I want to get your take on this.
Go for it.
So, we talk to the manufacturers, and we ask them why, and we get emails like every day from people saying, I've ordered, pick the truck, and it's not been delivered.
Why is it taking 6 extra months?
Why is it taking 6 extra months? Why are they so expensive? How come I don't have the thing that I've ordered? What the hell's going on? And so the conspiracy theory is, and I think there's merit to it, is that instead of building vehicles, the manufacturers, because of COVID and because of what we went through, have figured out that they can make a lot more money selling a lot fewer cars. And so they've basically figured out the Ferrari business model, which is build only as many cars as there is demand for, or just under that, and then, make the prices much more expensive so there's much more profit in each vehicle, and then blame the chip shortage or blame COVID or blame the Chinese, whoever you want to blame. And so they're on purpose, this is a theory, building fewer cars and trucks to inflate the pricing and to make, like Rolex does, like Ferrari does, to make supply and demand be much less equitable.
I think that's a fair assessment of what some people are doing. I don't think all the automakers are doing this, but I do think that some of them are playing some games. And I think in addition, they've taken advantage of the current buying world. We're still seeing dealerships jacking up prices relentlessly. It's still happening after years of this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Especially we're 3 years in from them doing this, pretty much from 2019.
Corolla GR, great example.
Yeah, it's a really good example.
Integra Type S, we just raced it in the video against the Mustang. That's another one.
It's part of the deal.
Corvettes are finally starting to come down, finally.
Right.
But not the Z06.
No. So I think it's going to take even more time to get to that point to where we actually brought down the prices to where they were pre-COVID, and we may never do that. So in addition to everything else, they're taking advantage of the fact that they know that they can, A, get a higher price on their car, but B, also push packages that normally they wouldn't sell. So, for instance, you get a mid-level SE model, whatever. Also, they're like, well, we got a limited or an SEL that has, it's only $2,000 more, but you'll get that heated seat that you wanted or whatever. And you're going to be like, yeah, it's the only one out there. I'll take it. And that's how some people, I think, have throttled down a little bit in terms of production so they can get out those more expensive variants, which means more profit.
Now, there is good news, and that is, like I said, I think we're hitting this chasm with electric cars, so there might be deals to be had on electric cars. I just drove, and this is, of course, anecdotal, so take it for what it's worth.
Yeah.
I just drove by the Volkswagen dealership. They had ID4 stacked up like cordwood on the lot.
Yeah.
I'm seeing like time on lot for cars like that. The Mustang Mach-E, same issue. And Tesla just keeps almost in a predatory fashion or aggressively, if I'm being less what would I call it, direct. They're slicing and dicing prices, and we just got this survey. I'll actually read this to you. I was gonna read this to you on and it's from our friends at IC Cars. And used EV prices are collapsing basically. Here's the. I'll just go through this really quickly. Okay, the top 10 cars where prices have gone down. All right, the BMW 5 Series PHEV down 15.5% for an average of $6,000.
Right.
The Jaguar E-Pace 16.2%, $6,000. Ioniq Hybrid down $3,800, 16.2. Now, Land Rover Discovery Hybrid, 16%, $8,000. Land Rover Velar, and number one, I'll give you the top three. Nissan Leaf, okay, average price in June of 2023, $22,500. Price changed in June of 2022, so this is 2023 versus 2022. $5,300 less, 19% decrease.
Wow, that's significant.
Tesla Model X, let me finish Model X, average price 2022 in June, $70,000. Average price today, $18,000 less, 21%. And the winner, chicken dinner, Tesla Model 3, average price as of June of this year, $37,000. Price change, $16,000, down 30.5%, Nathan.
Yep. And that's really good for the consumer because the prices are coming down for certain electric cars, but it's still not manageable for people who are looking for entry-level, really inexpensive electric cars. But I think we're on our way down there finally, about 2 years too late.
That's a good point, Nathan. Maybe people at this point, I've been getting the sense, stick my finger into the wind, and people are like, I'm done with electric cars.
Yep, I've been seeing that too. And we're so early into the game, I think some people just want to wash their hands of it because the limited selection that's out there tends to be very expensive. And there are some people who are like, I want a $30,000 car. I don't want to spend $50,000 for a car that really is only worth $20,000 or $15,000. I totally get that, and that's one thing you have to keep an eye on. So there you go. With that, we hope, was it Walter? Is that his name?
Will.
Sorry, thank
Will.
you. Will, I hope you had a great time watching us if you stayed till the end. Otherwise, have a wonderful week. We will be bringing you a lot more in the very near future.
Yeah, Tommy's over at Goodwood doing a lot of videos from the Goodwood Festival of Speed, so make sure to check out that. He's got the new Ineos Grenadier Quartermaster, which is a pickup truck.
Yeah, that's right. It's a proper pickup truck.
And he's there with Hyundai with the new Ioniq 5N, Nathan. Guess what? The car actually pretends to shift.
Ooh.
Seriously.
No, I'm looking
615 horsepower.
Wow.
0 to 60, they're saying 3.5, but it could be even quicker than that.
I'll take it. I love it.
All right.
That sounds great.
All right. See you guys next time. Remember, alltfl.com. Ciao.
Take care.